Hello all, this is the Owl, and here we go again. Corpse Party Blood Covered is the primary manga adaptation of the remaster of a classic RPG Maker survival horror game from the 90s that, anyone who tells you that they played it is telling pork pies. See, despite it being relatively popular in Japan, it was never actually released for Windows. Instead, it came out on a proprietary series of Japanese home computers, referred to confusingly enough as PC. Oh, Japan. Probably the closest Western analog would be the Amiga system. Back in the day. Yeah, remember those? No, you don't. Hell, I don't even remember Amiga. Except for maybe that kick-ass owl game, or that one where you play as a bee, Apedia? Yeah. That was excellent and really messed up for the era. What the hell am I on about? Anyway, it wasn't until 2006, a full decade later, that it got anything close to a widespread release via its pretty damn different remake, Blood Covered. And this was followed by sequels, prequels, requels, and more. Somehow, these games certainly made an impact, almost to the point of becoming a subculture touchstone, at least in J-horror circles. Today, we're going to take a look at part 2 of this bloody nightmare, only, the first part of the manga, which some people consider the boring part, is honestly my favorite bit. The rest, not so much. Look, it's not that it's bad, it's just that it's kind of a mess, and also insane. Let me see if I can explain, but first... A whole mess of high schoolers and their teacher are sucked into the nightmare reality of Tenjin Elementary after participating in a ritual that Ayumi, the ghost story aficionado of the group, found online. Scattered around different iterations of the school, they set about exploring, finding corpses, clues, and, well, horrible death. Seiko is the first of the group to go out, at least narratively, in a frigging horrific little sequence. She's hanged from the neck, which prompted Naomi to have something of a nervous breakdown, blaming herself for what she believed was a suicide. Yui, their teacher, was murdered by this little dingleberry of a ghost, and bad boy Yoshiki narrowly escaped death thanks to the power stone given to him and Ayumi by Yui. Yoshiki and Ayumi were, however, able to locate another student, Mayu, who seems to be chit-chatting away with the trio of malevolent ghost kids, spawned by a mysterious spate of brutal murders way back in Tenjin's history. Now, let's take a walk together, deeper into the darkness, as the mysteries of Tenjin unfold and the manga begins to, well, sort of shit itself inside out. You will see what I mean. We kick off with, it's another character. A serious-looking customer with glasses, who's, found a creepy doll. We won't find much about this out for a while, but spoilers, she is the most confusing part of this entire confusing-ass manga. Still, let's get back to our main characters. Mayu. There is one person in any sufficiently large group of friends that is so blissfully idiotic that they really do encompass the phrase Darwinism in action. You know, the sort that changes the TV channel in biker bars. And that's you, Mayu. Run! They're doing the spooky face and everything. But no, Mayu has a case of the galloping stupids. And This really bugs me, as she's another character that got horribly shortchanged in the manga. She was much more fleshed out in the game and was actually quite likable, which made something that's going to happen soon really hit home, rather than being borderline hilarious. We do finally learn the names of 3 of the 4 kidnapping victims, but I am not going to bother. The only one that really matters is the one we don't know anything about yet, except that, yeah, she's, of course, another piece of the mystery. It looks like they were all followed by that other spooky kid from earlier. Yeah, you're all screwed. I do like how the ghost's hand actually breaks out of the panel as he reaches towards the viewer. It's a touch I've always liked in comics. He launches some sort of, I don't know, psionic attack on the party, but they are saved by, oh, it's the glasses girl from earlier. Wonderful. Another damn character to constantly get confused with all the other characters. And this one I am going to call Naomi at least once because her name is Naho. If you're writing a manga where all the characters look kind of similar, at least give them very different names because, Oh, and guess what? She's a ghost and a confirmed psychic. You know what? Go home, Manga, you're drunk. We learned that she came here voluntarily to look for someone, and she is also the author of the Sachiko Sun ritual that got them all sent here in the first place. She wants to break the curse, which, much like the game, requires a handful of things to be accomplished, most notably getting the original killer to confess and ask forgiveness. Naho claims to know who the killer is, this big old bastard who apparently still wanders the halls of Tenjin, wielding a gigantic hammer. Oh, remember those kids with huge blunt force trauma wounds? Naho says that she's found a doll with the killer's voice, okay, apologizing and apparently showing this to the ghosts might actually pacify them. However, as they chat about this wonderfully convenient little plot device, they notice that the ghost trio are escorting Mayu off someplace, and they rush over to help. We immediately get to see the doll in action, and this seems to snap the trio into a different emotional state as they start sobbing and calling for their mothers. Jeez. But okay, so, all good then. Nope, something happens. The ghost trio starts screaming in fury and suddenly grab Mayu, drive her through the door, and then, bloody hell, road haul her all the way down the corridor. We don't actually get to see what happens here next. Believe it or not, this is one part that is substantially more graphic and gory in that terrible anime adaptation. But the trio in the classroom hear a scream, a wet thud, and then silence. They follow the trail of blood down the corridor, and they finally find what's left of Mayu. Remember that giant splat from earlier? The ghosts unga-bungered Mayu straight into the wall at high speed, basically pulverizing her. This was a really fucking sad part in the game, but it's almost funny here. Ayumi screams and runs away, with Yoshiki chasing after her, but Jeezy Pete. You know, Kidoween, you owe me a new pair of trousers. The Hammerman looms up out of nowhere, bonks Yoshiki once, and drags him off into the darkness. Holy crap! We cut back to Naomi. Yeah, that was inevitable. Who's still completely freaked out as, you know. She thinks that she made her best friend and possibly future girlfriend kill herself after a stupid fight. But she's suddenly approached by Naho, who tells her that it wasn't her fault. The school can just make you kill yourself for wibbly-wobbly ghost reasons, but then goes on to tell her that she's now completely alone. Naho then vanishes. Thanks. We then get to another really sad little plot beat, as Naomi frantically runs around trying to find someone, starting to panic, and then her phone rings. It's her mother. And of course, we get to do the whole "I can hear you, but you can't hear me" thing before she freaks out even more, but is stopped from her mad dashing around by a vision of Sachiko, who tells her that she's stronger than this and to keep pushing forwards. What is this? The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon? Yeah, that's a dope-ass book, actually. Easily among Stephen King's best. Where were we? In yet another jarring little shift of scenery, we finally get back to Satoshi. You know, the main character of this story, about a third of the way in. This manga. Satoshi is, for some reason, chatting with another ghost, alongside Yuka. Ghost Girl is telling them what we, the audience, already know, vis-a-vis they are all completely screwed. Satoshi, however, puts on his best protagonist face and declares that they will figure it out of devotion to his little sister. The ghost smiles, wishes them good luck, and then leaves. They then find the note left by Yoshiki and Ayumi. Yes, on top of being disjointed, the chronology of this manga is all screwed up. Still, now somewhat encouraged and wondering if this means that there is a way to contact their friends, Satoshi and Yuka head out into the pitch black school, using his phone as a light. I hope you charge that thing. They walk for a while before Yuka trips and falls over, "Oh crap, that's hair," and "Wah! Spoopy scary red dress ghost girl from earlier," and she grabs Yuka, flying off with her, but Satoshi finds her on top of a cabinet. Well, that was pointless. The pair find their way to the nurse's office, but wait, wasn't that door destroyed when Mayu got? Either way, they relax in the office for a bit and catch their breath before Yuka tells him that she needs to go outside and shake the lettuce.
Ooh, I have some pussy!
As they leave, they spot a large bloodstain and Morishige. Yeah, remember that character. He's taking pictures of something nasty on the floor with an unfortunate expression on his face. Yup, it's that mayonnaise stain on the wall. After a panel showing us a ripped off breast, which, yeah, I can't show that. Morishige attempts to play it cool, but Satoshi is suspicious. Well done, you may be as bland as milk, but at least you can spot a secret psychopath. Nonetheless, he asks Morishige to come along and help him look for the others, but he refuses and walks off into the school. Yeah, this little psycho will probably fit in just fine as a ghost. I swear, dark hair plus glasses equals evil in this sort of manga every cock-nobbling time. The pair continues onwards, and suddenly another tremor shakes the building, and an ominous door appears in front of them. They decide to enter, thinking that for some reason it may be some kind of supernatural stank tank for Yuka, but no, it actually opens onto a covered corridor outside, showing us the forest and the rain beating down on the school grounds. It's another really solid panel, and they follow it into the annex, hoping that it has the right kind of plumbing. But sadly, this place is just too ruined for, Yuka, can't you just use the hall?
Out of order!
Nope, she decides that she wants to do her business outside, and in probably the most baffling moment in this entire manga, Satoshi agrees to let her wander off into the rain. No dude, I'm sure she'll be totally fine. anyone else actively hates Satoshi. It's the eyeless victim girl who prepares to cut out Yuka's tongue, but she's able to break away and flees back into the annex, only now she's totally alone. Yuka continues exploring, and while she doesn't find her brother, she does find Morishige hunched over a corpse taking pictures, like that serial killer from Road to Perdition. He offers to take her to find her brother, but as Yuka isn't actually all that stupid, she refuses and runs off with him in hot pursuit. She's able to escape and hides in the art room, crouching under a table, but she's not alone. It's another girl. Okay, what? Morishige enters and starts calling out for her, and after the other girl gives the game away, he begins striding towards her. You know, this entire sequence is actually really good. It's the first decent bit of tension we've had in a while, so you know what, I'll take it. Yuka, saved by the other girl, who I'm guessing is a ghost, begins to rip out her own hair and accosts the psychopath, babbling crazy shit at him until he leaves. No, I'm deadly serious. She continues to babble at Yuka, who also leaves and soon runs into a figure that, yay, looks very much like her brother. She straight up tackles him in joy. Okay, that made me smile. But it's not Satoshi. It's this hunk of Manga Man meat, Yuya. Oh, Yuya. We'll get to know you soon. The gallant Yuya is, as it so happens, also apparently looking for his little sister, Haruna, and offers to take Yuka with him to find Satoshi. She, despite her recent experiences with creepers, agrees. Ah, Yuya, you're so damn wholesome. There's no way you turn out to be a secret asshole, right? Right? Ah. Okay, before this goes any further, I do want to address the elephant in the room. There's a certain subtext to some scenes between Yuya and Yuka that are, in a word, icky. Nothing overt, but it's still there around the margins, and yeah. So I'm going to put all of that stuff into a little box and put that box on a shelf somewhere, and then forget about it. Okay? Elephant addressed? Okay. The pair continue through the school and soon find, oh wonderful, another pair of new characters, Mitsuki and Kurosaki. Well, Mitsuki's actually a corpse. It's implied that Morishige killed her off earlier, but Kurosaki seems like good people. They all get chatting, and it turns out that they were brought here by the ritual too. Kurosaki agrees to join them and help them find the ones that are missing. First up though,
Potsy, potsy, potsy!
So they take Yuka to a nearby bathroom, locked off by talismans. Yuka, maybe use a corner somewhere. But no, they are able to get rid of the talismans and Yuka enters, shortly after which, yep, who didn't see that coming? Guy, who was too perfect to be anything but another secret psycho, is yet another secret psycho. You know, Yuka, assuming you make it out of here alive, you're going to be putting some therapist's kids through college. And that brings us to the end of Volume 2. Ah, this manga. Before we get stuck into Volume 3, let's go through something that I didn't have time for in the previous video, but I really wanted to mention. The idea of an onryo, and one of the core differences between Japanese ghost stories and Western ghost stories. Western scare tales paint the spirits as either aggrieved, lost beings, seeking out vengeance or at least acknowledgement, or at times attempting to fulfill some purpose, while from time to time they may strike out against the living This usually requires someone to transgress against the ghost in some way, be it taking an item, defiling a grave, or committing some heinous sin in the past. If you can find out what the ghost wants, you can usually pacify it, or even turn it benevolent. Japan has an analog. One usage of the term yurei refers to a ghost like this. It does have a grudge, and it'll likely mess with you, but if you can figure out what it wants, you can generally turn it good. Onryo, sometimes called ikiryo, are another bag of spoopy kittens entirely. Vengeful spirits, most often young women who died a tragic death. They hate the living with a passion, and if you succeed in drawing their attention in literally any way, often by simply contacting them or entering their sphere of influence, you're pretty much doomed, as they'll follow you, breaking you down psychologically and finally killing you in some horrific fashion. There is generally no way to escape this. The best you can hope for is buying time by appeasing the ghost in some way, although this tends to be a temporary solution at best. The only real way to beat an Onryo is to find some way of imprisoning or destroying it once and for all. The difference is subtle, but it's there, and defines one of the most fundamental differences between Western and Japanese horror. Western horror requires you or one of your blood relatives to do something wrong. Japanese horror only requires you to be unlucky enough to attract the attention of something you shouldn't. This might stem from the differences in Japanese social practices, in that, even now, Japan is rather collectivist in nature, particularly when it comes to assigning blame. It's why a single DUI in the office will often result in the entire staff being punished. Debts incurred by a parent can be passed on to a child, or a crime committed by someone even slightly related to them will result in entire families being hounded into poverty for reparations. Onryo can thus be viewed through a culturally Japanese lens as beings filled with justified anger, inflicting vengeance on society as a whole for not preventing their suffering. It's a fascinating little cultural phenomenon that could well be a video of its own, and definitely ties into this story in a big way. So keep it in mind as we move forwards. Anyway, enough rambling. Let's get back to the story. Volume 3 opens with a brief sequence, showing us that Yuya was always a complete nutter, but he was held in check by his older siblings, who he resented deeply. Although, dude, I'm not sure if you can call it bullying when they give you a slap because you're killing little animals. Yeah, Yuya sucks. And you'll have to wait until next video to see just how much Yuya sucks. Back in Tenjin, he hears Yuka scream, but it's not because she saw him murder Kurosaki, I think. It's because, holy crap, the bathroom is filled with dead, hanged kids, and yeah, this bit was so much creepier in the game. Oh, and remember that subtext I mentioned? Watch that hand, Yuya. Seriously, this stuff is just gross. Volume 3 is definitely the part of the manga where things kind of start to drag for me, truth be told. Meanwhile, Satoshi has apparently been teleported back to the staff room. Oh man, the desks and the binders, those take me way back like car seats. Satoshi finds another document, and we learn that of the 4 victims, the little girl in the red dress somehow survived and later moved away. If you're paying attention, you will immediately see the problem here, but I won't spell it out for you because the manga will do that for you later. We also learn the identity of the murderer, the principal's son, who apparently is called Yoshikazu. He had some kind of mild to moderate personality disorder. I'm guessing it's some kind of Asperger's, which made people uncomfortable around him, especially as a teacher. After the murders, he broke out of a mental hospital at a later date and returned to Tenjin. Classic, where he hanged himself. Not so classic. If you haven't noticed yet, he's the big dude with the hammer. His father was also a bit, shall we say, off. And he also in turn went insane and killed himself at a later date. The writer of the article's final conclusion is that the fourth victim, the little girl, is somehow the key to unraveling the mystery of Tenjin. And if you haven't spotted it yet, she's the little ghost girl we keep running into, the one covered with blood. Oh, blood covered. I get it now. I wish I'd made this joke earlier in the review, so I could say something like, well, I bet that's all the blood we're gonna see in this manga, near. Ah well, roads not traveled and all that. His little reverie is interrupted by Naho, who tells him that the reason they all got stuck here was that one of the students performing the ritual messed up, quite possibly on purpose. And after she somehow teleports him to another part of the school, alright, we get a brief villain speech showing us that, yay, Naho is yet another surprise villain. This manga, man. You know, one surprise psychopath, par for the course. 2 surprise psychopaths is an interesting twist. 3 surprise psychopaths is frigging stupid. Anyway, we join Yoshiki again. Somehow he survived the bonk on the bonce after the big guy brain bashed him, and shortly after he gets attacked again. But we see that the big dude isn't all there, oscillating between cold rage and confusion. Meanwhile, Satoshi, who's somewhere else now, is lured into the, I think that's the bathroom where Seiko died. He's hearing Naomi's voice and finds her in much the same position as Seiko. But unlike Naomi, he's not an idiot, can see how this works, and is able to save her before she chokes out. And the two share a, yeah, I'll give it to you, a pretty damn sweet scene. Naomi explains Seiko's death, and the pair hear Yuka crying out for help, far off, elsewhere within the school. I'm guessing still in the annex. They prepare to head off, leaving Seiko's corpse, wait, how did that get there? But vowing to return and take her back with them when they eventually find a way to leave. And as they walk away, we see that, Seiko's ghost is watching them, grateful that Satoshi is going to be there to take care of Naomi. See, this is the most frustrating thing about this manga. Just when it's about to turn into complete crap, you get a genuinely touching moment like this one. Good on you, Kidoween, but why couldn't more of the manga be good? Naomi is still suffering the after effects of her near hanging, so Satoshi takes her to the nurse's office and beds her down. I said beds her down, you dirty bastards, bonk, and she promptly falls asleep. On waking, Satoshi's gone, off to look for Yuka. We also get a probably overlong little plot arc where Naomi notices a text from Seiko that makes her think that she caused the suicide, which is stupid because she used to think that and was then told that it was the school. Not to mention, I assume, being hanged by ghosts herself. But Satoshi is narrowly able to save her from joining the ghosts voluntarily, yeah, that's actually a really cool panel, by showing her the full text, which was basically just Seiko saying sorry. A completely pointless diversion, but we do get yet another cool panel out of it where the ghosts catch up to them. That's actually terrifying. But they are saved by Naho again, using her holy water to drive off the spooks, and then she of course vanishes. And wow, finally, our protagonist is actually our protagonist, halfway through the cocksucking manga. We switch perspectives to Ayumi, who's looking for Yoshiki. She goes back into the main school structure, finding the trio of ghosts who are manipulating and mutilating a corpse, wonderful, as if they're searching for something. Pay attention, Ayumi, because this is important. She runs into Naho, who she blames for Mayu's death after her trick with the doll backfired. But Naho, yeah, I have no bloody idea what's going on with this character, to be honest, apologizes and says that the apology was evidently insufficient. She believes that she has isolated the problem as the 4 original victims who set up this little midwich conundrum, and she believes that the solution lies in returning their missing body parts to them. If this were done, their presence might be dispelled and the curse could be broken. We finally do get a brief hint as to what the blithering assfire Naho's deal is, when, after Naomi expresses admiration for her, she flashes back to something about her own teacher. Naho then vanishes, and Naomi prepares to strike out to find both Yoshiki and a bunch of organs when... Haha, joke's on you, Kedowin, I wasn't even wearing pants that time. You do owe me a new chair though, and a pair of socks. Bloody hell, why is it that this dude is so much scarier than any of the ghosts? You know what? I actually have an idea about him, and I think it's pretty interesting. So let's take a break from this nonsense and I will explain. Any aficionados of Japanese horror, particularly gaming, will immediately notice the archetype. He is a force of nature that roams the school, much like Mr. X in Resident Evil, Pyramid Head in Silent Hill, or that whatever the hell it is from Clock Tower. And I've always wondered if this trope was inspired by Jason, which, before you laugh, actually isn't that far-fetched. See, of all the Western monsters, aside from maybe OG Universals like Dracula and Frankenstein, Jason is by a mile the most well-known Western horror character in Japan. The image of the massive, unstoppable juggernaut, silently roaming an area and indiscriminately killing, crops up in so many pieces of Japanese media. And of course, there are also oodles of direct Jason references too, in everything from movies to anime to manga. And hell, you even got that game, which, if you don't know, was Japanese. I'm not kidding when I say that I tested this theory out a few years ago. Show a bunch of people over there a picture of Leatherface, Freddy, Ghostface, or hell, even Myers, and they'll shrug. But the second you pull out a picture of our hockey mask wearing Pell, everyone immediately goes, "Oh, it's Jason, I love Jason." Very, very interesting. And I've never puzzled this one out, but after an afternoon spent trying to get to the bottom of this, Mrs. Owl and I think we might just have worked it out. And the reason is quite mundane. See, Friday the 13th was massive in Japan. It received a full cinematic release right at the start of the VHS and horror boom in Japan. There are, however, some interesting theories that someone involved with the series was a huge fan and promoter of the original Godzilla movies in the West, and this resulted in him making some friends within the Japanese film industry, which in turn was parlayed into Friday the 13th's massive release. If you still don't believe me about Jason, Japan has a Jason-themed resort and even Jason-themed restaurants. I honestly cannot think of a single horror franchise in the West that has this much stuff attached to it. Anyway, what was I on about? Oh, the manga. Right. Yay. Ayumi screams and prepares to fight, but Yoshikazu just swings his massive sack. Wait, that sounded funny. Knocking her to the floor and pinning her underneath it. But it's actually the thoroughly bonked but still somehow living Yoshiki. Yoshikazu smiles weirdly and leaves. The pair chit-chat for a bit, and yeah, she's also starting to develop feelings for, seriously, why wasn't this guy the main character? Yeah, I'm guessing author insert, but We also learn that Yoshikazu does weird things, even by the standards of this manga. He bashed Yoshiki, then chained him up, then bashed him again, then freed him and brought him to Ayumi. Ayumi explains Naho's plan to get the original victims back their various body parts and thus release the ghosts, which is, I think, another nod towards Japanese folklore and spiritualism, as physical wholeness of the body is important in the odd amalgamation of Shinto, Tao, and Buddhist dogma that make up the Japanese religion. The two also finally put something together that observant viewers might have spotted already. The girl in the red dress makes no narrative sense whatsoever. See, she didn't die, but her ghost still roams the school. The two are understandably puzzled by this, but decide to ignore it for now and instead find the other kids' organs. After a while, they eventually end up at the pool, which fans of the games will remember as a much longer sequence, and one potentially horrible death. Standing on the edge, Ayumi and Yoshiki realize that the organs are probably in the pool. Why would you think that? But Ayumi gets hypnotized by a pool ghost and falls in. What is this, Lord of the Rings? Yoshiki jumps in to save her, and after some cuddle time with another corpse is actually able to find her, interspersed with an actually really effective sequence, showing why Yoshiki is a rebel. Due to his hair and upbringing, he was constantly being blamed and bullied by every teacher he met. Again, why is this guy not the main character? He's actually interesting. At the bottom of the pool, they find a sack. Yoshiki opens it and, oh boy, that is horrifying. It's the top half of a head and several tongues. Well, at least you killed several birds with one swim. Back in the nurse's office, they strip out of their wet clothing and we get some honestly pretty egregious fan service, with Ayumi in her undergarments for quite a while. But they find the doll from earlier, which, yeah, I don't know about this doll. It's still speaking in Yoshikazu's voice, except now it's telling them where to find the remaining body parts. The doll, leads them to the first spot and tells them that it's under the gigantic splat of mayonnaise. Naturally, they don't want to disturb the remains of their friend, but Morishige turns up. He's already acquired the bag. However, he's covered in Mayu's blood. You've been playing around with that shit, haven't you, you sick bastard? The two suspect something's up, but he leaves and they wonder if the school drove him nuts, or if this has always been some deeply concealed part of his nature. Again, black hair, glasses, male, bad guy. It is narrative causality in manga. But because this manga can never let an interesting moment continue for more than a page or two, they are attacked by the ghost trio. Yoshiki nearly loses his own tongue before Ayumi tells them that she does actually have their organs. You could have led with that, you know, and returns them to the kids. We get a genuinely lovely little spread, showing us that the kids are indeed restored to their original forms, and they say thank you before they vanish. Ah! Suddenly, another immense tremor shakes Tenjin, and yeah, I have no idea what's happening. Ayumi and Yoshiki wake up, and what is going on? They're back in Kisaragi. Their little organ donation plot worked, and they have been released from Tenjin. However, to Ayumi's horror, none of the others came with them. They turn and see, okay, this right here is the point where the manga officially jumps the shark. It's a huge portal in space leading back to Tenjin. And to add to the stupid, out of the rift pops a ghost. It's Yuki, the ghost whose eye they restored, and she informs them that, while their action, I guess, broke the barriers separating dimensions, the curse over the school remains. Apparently, there is still something they need to do. Get the murderer to apologize. But wait, didn't they do that already? Last time they tried it, oh, I see. The implication here is that Yoshikazu was not, in fact, the murderer. Or rather, not exactly. In order to fully break the curse of Tenjin Elementary, they will need to solve the mystery completely. Yoshiki is pissed, but Yuki explains that she is not permitted to tell them the answer. She is, however, willing to recount the entire kidnapping and murder, the incident that froze Tenjin in place in that dark reality. And this next bit is, squicktastic. Remember when I said that there were 3 infamous sequences in the manga? This is the second. Let's get it over with. Yuki takes Naomi back in time with her, somehow, or perhaps into her own memories. We see that Yoshikazu was actually a really kind man, despite his odd personality and occasional mild inappropriateness. And he was good friends with Yuki. However, one day, she woke up bound next to 3 other kids with Yoshikazu standing over her. No, don't worry, it doesn't go that way. Although I'm still not going to be able to show you too much of this sequence. It's nasty. Yuki is blindfolded and gets to listen to and, I guess, feel the other kids getting tortured and sliced up. This goes on for a while. Although it's not terribly explicit, it's frigging disturbing as all hell. Eventually, the others fall silent, and someone grabs her hair, yanks off her blindfold, only Yoshikazu is huddled in the corner of the room, terrified. And right at the arse end of Volume 3, we finally get our first big answer to these mysteries. The one who's been doing the cutting isn't him. It's, wait for it, Yuka, Satoshi's little sister. No, that would actually be interesting and unexpected. It's the little girl in red, the 4th victim, whose name is Sachiko. Yes, Sachiko from the ritual. And in a series of panels that, okay, these ones are actually really squicky, so I'm not going to show them. But she gouges out Yuki's eye and cuts off her tongue. So, Sachiko is the murderer. But what about Naho? And why is Yoshikazu playing the Jason to her Freddy Krueger? All that and, well, less will be answered next time. Until then, cheers my friends. If you enjoyed this video, why not stick around? There's plenty more like this and tons of other videos coming down the pipe, quite a few of which I am legitimately excited for. If you want to help myself and Mrs. Owl out, you can do so via our Patreon, and if you'd like to chit-chat with us, you can always stop by our Discord. It's growing rapidly and it's just, oh man, it's so wholesome. All links are in the description. Take care and I'll see you soon. This is the Owl, signing off.